Hello everyone. Um, this is a History Valley Q&A live stream. I'm also going to be discussing um, new videos that are going to be coming soon. Um, so let's wait for this stream to get a couple of views, and then I'll get into it. Okay, we're 27 seconds in. We have 2 people watching right now. Hey everybody. Say something for me in the live chat if y'all want. Ask questions. I'll do the best I can. If any of you want to join the program, let me know. I'll throw a link in the live chat if any of you want to join and discuss something. I'll be on here for like um I don't know, 20 minutes. Hello Google Scholar, how you doing? We got 2 likes. Okay, now we're down to 1 viewer. Any of you have any questions? Let me know. I'm gonna wait for it to pick up a few more views, and I'll discuss the new videos that are coming soon. Anybody want to say anything? Anybody want to join? Let me know. I'll put a link in the description after the request has been made, not before. Okay, well, I guess I'll get started with discussing new videos then. All right, so tomorrow, um, the Ralph Ellis post-examination part 1 will be uploaded, or episode 1, as I'm going to call it actually. The Ralph Ellis post-examination episode 1. It's going to be a 2-episode series. And we're going to be in the video. We're going to be discussing issues with Ralph Ellis's thesis, and then in the second one, in the second episode, we're going to be doing. That one's gonna be live. The second episode will be live. That'll be me and Valiant, James Valiant. We're going to rewatch the debate together and discuss any errors that we potentially made on our part, maybe something that we missed, or something didn't come out right. And we'll also talk about additional issues of Ralph Ellis's thesis. Okay, we got a couple of questions. Brett Forsyth asks, Gospel of John, possible authors. Google Scholar says, talk a little bit about John the Baptist. How famous was he? Well, other than the Gospels, the only other information that we really have on John the Baptist comes from Antiquities of the Jews written by Josephus Flavius. Based on what Josephus says about John the Baptist, I would argue that John the Baptist is more likely to have been more famous than Jesus, the historical Jesus. I say this because Josephus tells us that John the Baptist, his death was taken hard by the Jews because he says that when Aretas the fourth of Nabatea assaulted Jerusalem, and this is taking place on 36 CE, some say 37 CE. I would put it on 36 because that's when Pilate was removed from power, and that year was a bit tumultuous. A lot of stuff happened that year, including the Samaritan massacre. On 37 CE, there was a Carabas revolt as well. So those 2 years were filled with revolutions. Anyway, when Aretas attacked Jerusalem, Josephus tells us that the Jews believed that event to have been orchestrated by God to punish Herod Antipas for having John the Baptist executed. So the fact that the Jews believed that tells me that Yeah, it's safe to say John was a bit famous, as famous, or almost as famous as James the Just was in the first century. Because remember, the original Josephus tells us that the death of James caused the Jewish revolt against Rome. Origen of Alexandria tells us that's what Josephus said. If it had not been for Origen, we would not have known that. And that's also because Eusebius from the 4th century CE removed that passage from Josephus Flavius because of Origen's complaints. I plan on doing a full video on that, including the Doctrine of Adi being a complete forgery written in the 4th century. The Doctrine of Adi, I used to think it was probably 2nd century, but after taking a look at the evidence, I'm putting it square in the 4th century. The Doctrine of Adi is very unreliable. You can't trust anything that's in it. It's nonsense from beginning to end. So anyway, back to John the Baptist, of course. As I said earlier, John is more famous than Jesus. I think that's safe to say. And he was as famous or nearly as famous as James the Just was. Because think about it, Josephus doesn't say anything like this about Jesus. The Jews don't blame anything that occurs after Jesus' death on Jesus' death. They don't say, oh, well, God did this because of Jesus' death. They're saying God did this and that because of either John the Baptist or the Jews had a huge uproar over James' death. But nothing like this about Jesus. The original Jesus, that is. Because the New Testament pacifist, Roman sympathetic vassal King Jesus, that one's a different Jesus. It's quasi based on Jesus Christ, the brother of James the Just. And in a way, we're supposed to believe that's Jesus too, because that's what the Gospels are trying to do, trying to incorporate that Jesus from the AD 30s and put him, Jesus the brother of James, that is, and amalgamate him upon the New Testament Jesus. But he's not the New Testament Jesus. The only things they have in common is both were called Jesus and Christ, and both of them were crucified during the reign of Pilate, at the hands of Pilate, and both are James' brother. That's it. That's not a lot of parallels if you think about it. The parallels in the Pauline epistles, the Pauline Jesus is basically King Bazus posthumously stealing the identity of Jesus Christ. And I say that posthumously because after he died, Paul remodeled King Bazus to take over Jesus Christ in his letters. So that's what's going on. And if you have any more questions, give me 1 second. Any more questions, anybody? Brett Forsyth says, if Judas Iscariot is the possible role of Jesus, who would play the Judas Iscariot role? Well, Judas Iscariot he's basically Judas the Galilean. Iscariot derives from Sakari, and many authors have noted that. But the thing is, though, this is the strange part, and I have to get into this in a separate video. Judas Iscariot betrays Jesus. At this time, without getting too much into it, it looks to me that that event is based upon 2 things. Well, 3 things, actually. Paul in, I can't remember if it's in 1st or 2nd Corinthians. I think it's in 1st Corinthians. He tells us that Jesus was betrayed, but he's very vague about it. Doesn't tell us much about it. But the book of Genesis tells us that Judah betrayed his brother Joseph and sold his own brother into slavery. Horrible. Anyway, you can tell that the Gospels quasi based the Judas and Jesus rivalry from that story. Jesus is imitating Joseph from the Old Testament, the book of Genesis. However, and from a historical point of view, and not a mimesis point of view, not a Old Testament layover point of view, Josephus tells us that the Zealots attacked Adiabene. And that's one of the many reasons I say that the Adiabene were Roman client kings and not Jewish revolutionaries in any way, shape, or form. So, the Zealots attacked Adiabene, Babylon, on about 4 BCE, and that's when King Bazus fled Babylon Josephus at one point calls him Zamaris. Josephus does that. Except that he gives 2 or 3 different names to the same character here and there. Anyway, this guy is fleeing Babylon. He goes to Israel, receives tax exemption and land by Herod the Great. And you have to also think about this. Jesus is going to Bethany all the time in the Gospels. Adia Beni is Bethany. It's the same thing. They changed the location from Iraq to Israel, but Bethany is Adia Beni in Iraq, not in Israel. I believe I mentioned that, yeah. I think I discussed that before. Anyway, Josephus betraying the Jews to the Romans also has significant parallels to Judas Iscariot betraying Jesus to the Romans, because here's the other thing. Josephus, he has an enemy called Jesus ben Saphias, or Yeshua ben Saphias. He led 600 fishermen against Commander Vespasian on 67 CE. But we're also told that this same Jesus tried to have Josephus killed and or arrested here and there. So the rivalry between Josephus Flavius and this Jesus character is very similar to the rivalry between Judas and Jesus in the Gospels, but it's also similar to Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? That's what Jesus was asking Paul or Saul in Acts. So there are instances where Jesus is imitating the rivalry between Josephus and Jesus in the 60s CE. However, etymologically speaking, linguistically speaking, Judas Iscariot is a better fit for Judas the Galilean, founder of the Sicarii. And the Sicarii is the name of the 4th sect of Judaism. A lot of people don't realize that. They just call it, they just mention the 4th sect of Judaism, but the name that they call themselves the Sicarii. That's their name. And zealots in Hebrew is Hakanam, which means the zealots, or the zealot, literally. Stinky says, have you written a book about this? Or if not, can you recommend some by other authors? I'm still working on my book. I don't really have a recommendation right now. I mean, well, the only book I can recommend right now is James, the Brother of Jesus by Professor Eisenman. But you can also get Creating Christ by James Valiant. That's a pretty good book too. Other than that, I would recommend that people read the source material themselves, but that would take some extra research and doing. The New Testament Code by Professor Eisenman again is also a good one. Those are the recommendations that I have for right now. So Brett Forsyth, so far you're the one person that's asked me the most questions. And so, actually, you just entered a third question, so actually I'm correct now. Wasn't correct a moment ago. Google Scholar and you were tied for a minute. Brett Forsyth asks, can you expand on the Nero geometry of 666 versus the TRSV Hebrew 666 we were discussing? Okay, so we're told by the not only do linguists agree that the 666, the mark of the beast, is derived from Emperor Nero. That is a technically consensus. Nero forced the Roman citizens to have his face plastered on coins, otherwise they couldn't buy, sell, or trade. It's a very similar scenario to the mark of the beast. I also need to get into that more, because that's actually evidence that, allegorically speaking, the New Testament story was supposed to have taken place and fulfilled in the 1st century. It was not originally supposed to be a continuing prophecy. It's allegorically all supposed to have happened in the 1st century. Kwame asks, Jacob, is there any connection between, I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this right, Therapeuticism Theraputus, and Adiabene. That sounds familiar, but I need to look into that some more. I don't have any other comment at this time. D.A. Herndon says, is it possible that a man called Jesus was actually a Jewish prophet and some of his real quotes are in the New Testament? The only thing we know about a Jesus was that he was crucified during Pilate's reign, and that he's James Berger. We don't know anything more about that. I don't think anything in the Gospels goes back to Jesus except maybe a handful of quotes from the Q source, or the Logia to Krios, the sayings of the Lord, as it was originally called in the Greek. I would suspect that some of those real quotes are the violent ones, the anti-Gentile, like when Jesus told the Canaanite woman is essentially a dog. He called Gentiles dogs. That's probably the real Jesus probably did say that. I suspect him to have been xenophobic and anti-foreigner. I don't think Jesus liked anybody except Israelites. His brother James thinks alike. We're even told by early extra biblical sources. Kawami says, Theraputus Philo speak about them. I think you meant... Oh, never mind. I read that correctly. Kwame Theraputus, a Jewish sect in Alexandria who worships Serapis. Brett Forsyth says, any thoughts on the Shroud of Turin? I don't have any comment on that last one, Kwame. I'll get to your bottom one in a second. Brett Forsyth, the Shroud of Turin, as we have it, I am confident is a forgery. But there's an earlier image that it is semi-based on. And this comes from the Doctrine of Addai, but unfortunately the Doctrine of Addai is a 4th century forgery. Which means, even in the beginning, it's a forgery, because it talks about the image of Jesus, the portrait from Edessa. So yeah. Yeah, it's a forgery from the beginning, and then reforged later. So, it doesn't stand a chance. Google Scholar says, is it possible that Paul could have been a Pharisee given what Pharisees believed? I'm pretty confident that he was simply infiltrating the Pharisees, because he was infiltrating the Jewish movement. We are told in, I think it was Philippians, because I know Paul does say this in one of his authentic letters, that he is a Benjamite and a Pharisee according to the law. Now that's the strange part. He says Pharisee according to the law. That's a strange way of putting it. It's like he's not saying he's a Pharisee directly, but according to the law he is. So there's something iffy there. And I think the answer is he's not a Pharisee by heart. He's a Pharisee in terms of he infiltrated the Pharisees and pretended to be one. Because a Pharisee isn't going to believe something that it's not going to be a Herodian like Paul, and is not going to think like Paul. Pharisees were Torah Orthodox. Kwame says Nero, Platonic Stoic Jewish cult in Alexandria. D.A. Herndon says Paul was a Hellenized Jew. D.A. Herndon says if he was a Jew at all, he was a Roman citizen. Well, since Paul's a Herodian in the Herodian family, I mean, by blood, by ethnicity, by the ethnical background, they are technically Jews, but they're not. They're not Torah Orthodox Jews, that's for sure. All right, does anybody want to join me on this? Anyone want to join me on Google Meets? Kwame says Alexandria Jews wrote Paul and Edessa. Adiabene Jews wrote the Gospels. Google Scholar says okay. Brett Forsyth says join you on what? So if I put a link in the description, which I'm about to do so right now, you can join me on this stream and we can talk. Which I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Just give me 1 second. I'm back. Okay, I'm putting the link in the description now. I'm also going to put the link in the description of this video. I'm about to edit into it now. Alright, so the link is in the description. The link is also in the live feed. If any of you want to join, just press on that link, click on it. I have it pinned in the live chat as well, so it should be more than obvious. So far, it doesn't appear anybody wants to get on here. While we wait for a guest to join, any of you have any more questions in the meantime? We have 10 views right now. Alright, for any of you that are not subscribed, please subscribe. Don't forget to do that. If any of you want to donate to the channel, check out the PayPal link in the About section of the channel or in the description of this video. Same thing with Patreon. If you want to go that way and do a monthly, go into Patreon. Would appreciate it. Okay. The link is in the description again. If anybody wants to join as a guest on this program, hit it. Hit the link. If any of you have hit the link, let me know. Because if you have to let me know, that probably means I didn't see it. Or for some reason Google Meets isn't notifying me that somebody wants to join. So if you have gone into the link, let me know. Okay, 7 people watching right now, so the number has dropped from by 3 people. Don't forget to like the video and share it if any of you want to do that. We appreciate that as well. That helps the channel. Any of you have any more questions for me? Meantime, I'm not getting any new ones, so I'm going to be going through the chat, see if I maybe want to answer something in a different way or see if I miss anything. I'll expand on Kwame's statement. Alexandria Jews wrote Paul, and Edessa, Adiabene Jews wrote the Gospels. So I'm pretty confident there was a historical Paul. I think Paul is mentioned by Josephus. He tells us about a man called Saul, the kinsman of Agrippa, that's going around Judea and causing mayhem. Yeah, so Josephus didn't like him too much. Especially considering Saul is pro-Roman, so he's kind of a rival. So the historical Saul, Paul of Tarsus, was a rival to Josephus Flavius to gain favor from the imperial throne. I mean, remember, Paul was going to see Caesar. I mean, it's in Romans, it's in Philippians. Paul was going to see Caesar. At the time, that was Emperor Nero. As for Josephus, he was gaining favor from Commander Vespasian in 67 already. Before he became emperor. Commander of Vespasian became emperor. Red Force says Paul was hosting book burnings. Any ideas what kind of books? Well, Paul's letters. If he, well, he doesn't really say anything about book burning, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was burning up Torahs. He probably was doing that. He was probably trying to burn up Dead Sea Scrolls as well. Josephus doesn't expand on that too much. Actually, he doesn't really. Josephus doesn't really provide us any additional information on that book burning stuff. Little Impeller says, so we are not sure if Paul existed and his birth date could have been made up. Oh no, we are certain Paul existed. We have 7 letters that he wrote. Or at least we have 7 authentic letters that are loosely based on the original ones. The 7 letters that we have have been interpolated using Josephus, unfortunately. All of them, even the authentic ones. But the 7 original authentics can be reconstructed by taking out what are currently known interpolations in the text to reconstruct what Paul wrote before AD 70. Or should I say before AD 68? Because I know in previous videos I said Paul died on 62, but what I meant was, or what I was trying to lean towards, is that Paul's ministry started to die on 62, but his death actually happened on AD 68. That correction will be made in a later video. I'm not convinced of the early dating of Paul's death on 55 by SGF Brandon. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Google Scholar says, is there any possibility that Christianity could have started before the 30s AD? Oh yeah, I'm sure it did. It probably wasn't called Christianity though. The best evidence for that comes from Philo preaching Yahweh is his own son, the Logos. Because Philo believed that the flesh and bone, which is the Logos, the Word of God in the flesh, is the physical Son of God, but not consciously God's Son. In other words, it's not self-aware. It's not consciously Son of God. The body is the Son of God, but they have the same consciousness. So it's actually the same person. So therefore, he's his own son. That's what Philo believes. It's very strange. It can give someone a headache just to think about that. Brad Forsyth says probability of Paul Saul Tarsus TRSV being the Antichrist. I don't think that's a possibility at all. I'm very, very certain Nero is the Antichrist. You don't get any more similar than Nero is the Antichrist. Okay. I'm going to repeat this again. Does anybody wants to join me? If anybody wants to join me on this stream, click on the link in the description of the video. The link to Google Meets. Meetgoogle.com or meet.google.com. Let's see here. Stuart says, what are your views on the text Philemon? What can we reconstruct from the text historically? I would say Philemon is the last letter Paul wrote, because that's the only letter he complains about his age. And he's basically telling Philemon that, hey, take care of Onesimus for me. And it's like his farewell, that his death is coming after that letter gets written. So that's what I think we can reconstruct from it historically. Brett Forsyth says Jesus is said to be the Word who is the angel who visits the prophets in the Old Testament. Well, that's pretty much what the Jewish God Yahweh does. So, I mean, Jesus is pretty much Yahweh. I mean, that's why the entire New Testament calls Jesus Lord, but never the Lord's Son. The Greek word Krios is reserved for the Old Testament God. It's the Greek the version of Adonai, The Lord in Hebrew. Um, I'm going to repost the link to this program in the chat. There it is now. So if any of you wants to join me again, click on that. I think that'll be the last time I'll bring that up. So if any of you want to join me now, because I'm about to get off here in a few minutes. Okay, 10 people, and we're at 3 likes. Okay, cool. Yeah, Dr. Margaret Barker, she's the one that demonstrated that pretty much the entire New Testament, it's so obvious anyway, and I wouldn't be surprised if someone before her noticed that the entire New Testament calls Jesus Lord, never the Lord's Son. It's basically based on Deuteronomy, the idea that Jesus and the Most High were not originally the same God. They were Father and Son. Let me rephrase that. The idea that the Jewish God and the Most High were not originally the same God. That Yahweh had a father. A point that I brought up on Myth Vision when I first showed up on there on God as a father. Oh, no problem, Brett. And just so you know, the phone also works. If you want to try that, it can work with your smartphone or iPhone or whatever. Just want to throw that out there. Anyone else wants to join me on the program, click on that link. I guess I'll stay on here just a little longer. I'm not making any promises though. Meantime, if anyone has any more questions, throw it at me. Now 9 views. Brett asks, have you seen the movie Plitz? I think I'm reading that right. About finding the true name of God. No, I have not. Alright. Doesn't look like anybody wants to join me on the program right now. Alright. I think I'm going to go ahead and head off. I'll wait 2 more minutes. If nobody joins in as guests, I'm heading off. Two minutes. Down to 9 views again. Alright, 1 more minute. True to Hell's, oh wait a minute, I skipped the question. Hold on a second. Brett Forsyth says, why no magic performed after 1st century? I don't think it was magic to begin with. True to Hell says, are your studies mainly solely on the New Testament? No. I have videos on the Old Testament. I have videos on Hinduism. Although I haven't done any advanced presentations on Hinduism because, well, I didn't know how to do all of this in the way I do know how now. Okay, I didn't phrase that right. What I'm saying is I didn't know how to present like I do now. So the videos aren't that good. But no, I focus mainly on the New Testament, but that's gonna change pretty soon here. But there's a whole lot to get into about the New Testament, a whole lot of pseudo offers I'm going to be criticizing soon here as well. Um, others need to get criticized on this channel. Other videos need to be made because there are people out there spreading nonsense, and they need to be criticized for it. All right, the 2 minutes are up. That's the end of the program. I'll see all of you later. Tomorrow, the Ralph Ellis post-examination debate, episode 1, will be premiered tomorrow. I'll see all of you later. I'll read this last one. D.A. Herndon says, next Friday night I will join you. I'm HR Holdings on your Discord. Oh. Oh, yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I had a feeling, but something I didn't pay attention to. I guess a slight feeling of familiarity. True Hellsense, thanks. You're welcome. And all right, I'll see all you later. Don't forget to subscribe if you aren't subscribed.